Welcome back to Handgun World. I'm Bob Main. Recently, I've had some viewers and some listeners ask me to talk about the SIG P320. Now, there's a million videos about the SIG P320, and I am just one of many opinions. So take that for what it's worth. I kind of reluctantly am doing this video. I really didn't intend to do it, but since people asked, okay, here you go. What does the SIG P320 pistol and the Ford Pinto have in common? When this whole controversy about the SIG 320 kind of blew up, and no pun intended, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just do a search on SIG P320 issues. This made me think of the Ford Pinto problems. I'm 63 years old. I'm old enough to remember back in the 70s when Ford had a problem with Pintos blowing up because a rear end crash, even at 28 miles an hour, would make the fuel tank explode and the car would burn up on fire. And it was a big safety hazard. And I think, let me look at my notes here. I think there was something like 28 people lost their lives. Now, we've had a lot of people lose their lives or at least get injured by a SIG P320. Recently, an Air Force airman reportedly lost his life because of a 320 going off on its own while it was holstered. We don't know all the facts, I guess, and I'm not here to make a determination on that case alone, but I will say this. Ford pretty much rushed the Pinto to market. They were getting a lot of pressure from competitors to come out with a vehicle like that. And because of their rush to market, they made some shortcuts. And Ford even admitted that they kind of knew about the problems with the Ford Pinto before releasing it. I think SIG kind of knew about some of the problems with the P320, but they had a rush and a lot of pressure to get it to market. And they wanted the military contract. And they won it. And, well, we'll see what's going to happen with that now. Who knows? I work for a manufacturer, not a gun manufacturer, and I'm not even going to tell you the name of the manufacturer or what we make. But I've worked for two different manufacturers in the last 20-something years. And it's never a good idea to rush something to market. It's just my opinion that that's what SIG Sauer has done here with the P320. They've kind of pulled a Ford Pinto situation. And now, Ford voluntarily recalled their vehicles. I think it says here, I'm looking at an article about that. They recalled 1.5 million Ford Pintos and 30,000 Mercury Bobcats. And, it was because they got a lot of pressure from the National Highway and Traffic and Safety Association. Now, am I advocating for big government control? No, I'm not advocating for big government control. But when the safety of people's lives are in jeopardy, I think that's a really big deal. Regarding the SIG 320, I think we knew back in 2017 or 2018 that the gun had a problem. It didn't pass a drop safety test. If the gun was dropped at a certain angle, I think it was like a 33 degree angle or something like that, it was firing. SIG denied it. SIG still today denies the problem. This is August 2nd, 2025 that I'm recording this, and SIG still denies it, has not issued a recall. We knew back in 2017 or 2018, if you bought a SIG 320 after 2018, well, then you knew the risk. That's what I'm saying. You knew the risk. That doesn't let SIG off the hook. I surely don't believe that lets SIG off the hook, but you knew the risk. Don't buy and carry a SIG P320. And if you have a SIG P320, I would not suggest carrying it anymore. Now, there's plenty of other good guns. You know, there's the new Ruger RXM, which is also a modular design. Okay? There's Shadow Systems guns. There's Glocks. Hey, we see a lot of people saying, I'm switching from my 320 back to my Glocks, back to my M&Ps. Okay? Glocks and M&Ps have very long safety records, and they're reliable guns. Anything that is a Glock clone that copies the same design as a Glock, probably pretty safe. There's a lot of alternative options. Now, I'm not carrying my Ruger RXM yet, okay, because I haven't put enough rounds through it, but it's getting close to getting to the point where I'll carry it. I carry Glocks. I do carry a SIG P365, which I think is a completely different gun than the P320. Here's why. How many of you watching this remember the SIG P250? Search that. Search the SIG P250. Read about it, learn about it. The SIG 250 looks exactly the same as a P320. Why is that? It seems to me that SIG simply redesigned the 250, which was a double action only hammer-fired pistol, and they redesigned it and turned it into a striker-fired gun called the P320. Now, we all have heard that you never modify any gun, handgun, rifle, shotgun. Don't modify them and get too far away from the original design. In other words, when you make your modifications, don't change the original design of the firearm. It seems to me like SIG did that with the 250. They redesigned a hammer-fired, double-action-only pistol, and they got away from the design, and they turned it into the 320 striker-fired. Maybe they cut some corners. Maybe in their rush to get it to market, maybe they cut some corners. Maybe in their willingness or their rush or their eagerness to get the military contract, which they did, maybe they cut some corners. Maybe they cut some corners in parts and in design and in quality control. SIG claims, and it seems like they're gonna die on this hill. They're gonna fall on their sword. They're claiming that it's the most tested gun ever. Well, it's got a problem. I don't care if it's the most tested gun ever. It's got a problem. And we all know that. And I think it's proven that there's a problem. Many other people on YouTube have proven there's an issue. There's plenty of people from SIG and from SIG affiliates that are denying it. And it looks like they're going to deny it. I don't know. It might destroy SIG or it might not. But it might really, really hurt SIG Corporation in a big way. Let's go back to the Ford Pinto. Ford issued the recall. Ford took a really big hit because of the Pinto. But look at Ford today. They survived. They're still a major auto manufacturer. I believe the F-150 is probably the largest selling vehicle in the United States. Or it's one of the top selling vehicles in the United States. Ford sells their cars internationally. They're used internationally. Ford got through it. I even respect Ford, even though I don't drive a Ford. I respect them for not taking the government bailouts. So, SIG could rebound from this, but it doesn't seem like they want to. That's my opinion. It doesn't seem like they want to rebound. It seems like they want to make you the fault. They want to make you the gun owner, you the user. You're at fault. SIG doesn't have anything to do with it. That seems to be their attitude. John F. Kennedy once said, "A mistake does not become a problem unless you fail to correct it." I think SIG allowed this to become a problem because they failed to correct it. How about just coming out and saying, we have a problem? How about just admitting it? How about just coming out with a voluntary recall at least, or a mandatory recall, and just say, we admit there's a problem, we got a fix, here's the fix, and we guarantee it going forward. That would probably be a much better move than SIG is making today. SIG's going on social media a bunch of times, denying everything, saying that it's the user's fault. Even at one time they said, carry the pistol without a round in the chamber? Why would we need to do that? Why do we need to carry a pistol without a round in the chamber? If there's nothing wrong with the gun, why do we need to do that? Okay? It just seems like SIG is handling this the wrong way. Again, there's a lot more that SIG could do, but I would not buy a 320. Don't buy a 320. People asked me to do this video, and they asked me for my thoughts on it, so here it is. I'm putting it out there. I'm just one guy. I'm not a gunsmith. I'm not ex-law enforcement. I'm not ex-military. I'm not a tactical trainer, stuff like that. I'm an everyday guy, but for 20 years, I've been carrying guns. I have been a firearms instructor. I have been a defensive firearms instructor, and I'm an avid competitive shooter for 20 years. So I've been paying attention to the market, and I've learned a few things along the way. My opinion was asked for, and so I'm putting my opinion out there. We see defensive schools that are banning the SIG. They say you can't bring the SIG P320 to classes. Can't do it. IDPA has recently banned the SIG 320. Law enforcement departments are stopping the use of the SIG P320. Do you think there's a problem? And it's really a shame, because a nice big company like SIG Sauer, I love some of SIG's previous products. The SIG P226 and the 229, awesome guns. The P365, which I happen to be carrying right now. 365, a nice gun. So far, I don't believe that there's been any issues with the P365 of uncommanded discharges like there is with the 320. I don't think the SIG P365 is a redesign of another gun. It was built from the ground up. So there you go. That's my opinion. For what it's worth, you tuned in. If you like what you heard, please click like on the video. Please subscribe to my channel. I could use some more subscribers. Put some comments below. Watch some of my other videos. And if you want to support my work on Patreon, there's a good link for that as well also. Thanks for watching, everybody.